HTML is something most of us first learn in school. I remember studying it back in class 10th. It felt so basic back then, just a few tags here and there to build the simple web pages. But what many people don't realize is that HTML is actually the foundation of entire web. No matter how advanced websites get, HTML is always at the core. And that's exactly why interviewers still ask HTML questions, not just to test if you know the syntax, but to see how strong your fundamentals are. In this video, I have put together the top 15 HTML interview questions covering everything from basics to some advanced sets of questions. So without any further ado, let's get started with some basic set of questions. Question number 1. What is HTML and what is the purpose of HTML in web development? HTML, which also stands for Hypertext Markup Language, is set of codes that define how web pages are structured and displayed. You can think of HTML as the skeleton of website. It holds everything together. Just like a blueprint helps build a house, HTML structure web pages. This structure is essential because it organizes text, images, and buttons, making website easy to navigate and interact with. Moreover, HTML plays a crucial role in accessibility by allowing screen readers to read the content aloud for visually impaired users, ensuring that websites can be used by everyone. Another major advantage of HTML is its universal compatibility. No matter what device or browser you use, HTML ensures the website loads correctly and functions smoothly. Lastly, using well-structured HTML keeps the code clean, organized, making it easier for developer to read, manage, and update. So we can say without HTML, websites wouldn't exist. It is the foundation of everything on the web. Moving ahead with our question number 2. What is the difference between element versus tag versus attribute? In HTML, tags are the instruction we give to browser to tell it how to display content. For example, if we want to show a heading or a paragraph, we use tags like h1 for a heading or p for a paragraph. These tags are basically keywords placed inside these brackets. Most tags come in pair, which we call as opening tag and a closing tag. The opening tags look like this and a closing tag include a forward slash like this. So if you write P, this is a paragraph, you're using tags to define a paragraph. Now the entire structure, the opening tag, the content inside it and the closing tag is called an HTML element. So in the paragraph example, the element P, this is a paragraph, and when we are closing it, every part of web page, whether it's a button, an image, a link or a line, is built using these elements. You can think of it like this. If B is the command to make something bold, then bold tag hello and then closing bold tag is actual element that does the bolding on the screen. Then comes the attribute, which add more details to element. Attributes are placed inside the opening tag and help define how that element should behave or appear. For example, if you're adding an image using image tag, you will often see something like this. In this case, src is the attribute that tells the browser where the image file is located, and alt provide alternative text in case the image doesn't load. These are the name value pairs inside the opening tag. To bring it all together, here's one more example. You can see this line of code on the screen. In this example, A is the tag used to create a hyperlink. Href equals to location is the attribute that tells the browser where the link should go, and the entire structure from the opening tag to closing tag with the content in between is the HTML element. Moving ahead with the question number 3, what a semantic element in HTML? Is div a semantic element? Alright, think of a website like a well-organized book. You have chapters, heading and section that clearly define what is exactly inside the book. That's exactly what semantic elements do in HTML. They provide meaningful structure to content, making it easier for both developer and browsers to interpret. Let's apply same logic to the website. Say for example, header is like the book cover. It contains book titles and author name. Nav is the table of content. It helps reader navigate different chapters. An article is like a chapter in the book. It contains independent content on a specific topic. Footer is like the book's back cover. It is often includes author detail, publisher info or references. And tags like header, footer and article tell us what their content is about, improving readability, accessibility and SEO. Search engine prioritize structured content, and assistive technologies like screen reader rely on these tags to help visually impaired user navigate a web. Now, is div a semantic element? No. It's purely about layout and styling with no built-in significance. That is why semantic elements are better, improve search engine ranking and make web pages more accessible for all users. Moving ahead with our fourth question, what is difference between block level and inline element? When designing a web page, understanding how element behave is very crucial. In HTML, elements are categorized into block level and inline element, each with unique way of displaying content. Block level elements are like full width section in a book. They always start on the new line and take up the entire width available. Think of them as a chapter title in a book. No matter how short the title is, it is still gets an entire line. Example include P, paragraph and division, both of which create distinct block of content. On the other hand, inline elements fit naturally within a sentence, just like highlighted words in a book. They don't start on a new line and only take up as much space as needed. For example, span tag is like a highlighted word and a anchor tag is like an underlined reference within a paragraph. Example for clarity, a block level element looks like this. Each start on a new line forming a separate section. And on the other hand, an inline element looks like this. Here span doesn't break the line, it simply modify part of the text. In summary, block level organize content into section, while inline element enhances specific word like text formatting within a paragraph. Understand this distinction helps in structuring web pages efficiently. Now moving ahead with the fifth question, what is the difference between strong, bold, EM and I tag? Alright, imagine you're reading a book. Some words are just bold for styling while others are emphasized to change the tone. That's exactly what bold, strong, I and EM work in HTML. Using these tags in HTML, you can see different outputs on the screen. Example which you can see on the screen. What happens on the screen is B makes the text bold just for the looks. Strong makes the text bold and tell browser it's important. I makes the text slanted, which is italic, just for styling. EM makes text slanted and add emphasis when reading aloud. So if you just want bold or italic styling, use B and I. But if you want to add meaning, use strong and EM tag. Now that is all for the basic set of questions. Moving ahead with some advanced set of questions. Okay, so moving ahead with a question number 6, which is what is the difference between absolute and relative URLs? Okay, so imagine you're giving direction to a friend. So there are two ways to direct him. First one is you would provide him the full address, like 123, then Main Street, then city name, and then the country name. Okay. This ensures that they reach the exact location no matter where they start. Similarly, an absolute URL in web development provides the complete web address, including the protocol, which is HTTP or HTTPS, the domain name. Okay. This is the domain name, and the file path. For example, if your file is located like logo.png, like the whole path, that will always take the user to that exact location regardless of where the link is placed. On the other hand, a relative URL is a partial web address that links to a file or page based on the current page location, which is shorter and used within the same website, which is, we can say, example equals to contact.html. So we are not providing the whole complete path. Okay, moving ahead with our next question, which is what is the difference between ID and class attribute in HTML? Okay, so in HTML, both the ID and class attribute are used to identify the style element, but they serve different purpose. Okay, so the ID attribute is a unique identifier, meaning each element can only have one specific ID. Only one specific ID. And no two elements can share the same ID on a web page. It is mainly used when you need to style or manipulate a single unique element with CSS or JavaScript. For example, if you want to change the color of a specific paragraph, okay, you can use ID equals to special, this line, and style it in CSS. On the other hand, class attribute applies style and behavior to multiple elements. So it allows grouping of elements that share common property. If you want to apply the same styling to unique paragraph, you can use class equals to highlight, this one, and define its styling in CSS. The main difference is that ID is unique, while class can be used for multiple elements. So in CSS, an ID is selected using hashtag ID name, whereas in a class is selected using dot class. Okay, dot is used, and here hashtag is used. So the ID attribute is useful when targeting a specific element such as navigation bar or footer, while the class attribute is useful for styling multiple similar elements such as heading or buttons or text block. So moving ahead with our next question, which is what is the difference between session storage and local storage? So imagine you're working on an online form and you want to save some information so that you don't have to type it again. For example, you have clear 2 step of that form, and you need to save that so that after you log in, you don't have to repeat 1 and 2 step again. This is where local storage and session storage come in, but they work very differently. So local storage is like writing something in a notebook and keeping it on your desk. Even if you close the book or leave the room or turn off the light, or in our case, even if you turn off the browser, your notes are still there when you come back. It stores data permanently until it is manually deleted. So even if you close and reopen the browser, the data remains saved. It can hold up to 5 MB to 10 MB of data depending on the browser. So unlike cookies, local storage does not send data to the server, meaning it stays only on your computer. This makes it useful for storing, setting preferences or items in a shopping cart that would remain available even when you leave the website. Okay. On the other hand, the session storage is like writing something on a whiteboard. So as soon as the one teacher goes and other teacher comes, he removes it. So it gets deleted when the tab or browser is closed. It can hold data up to 5 MB. So it's temporary only for that particular session. It's available in the tab it was created in. And it is sent to server? No. Use cases are temporary forms, one-time data entry. An example like text on the whiteboard that we discussed earlier. Okay, moving ahead with the next question. So how do you add CSS styling in HTML? So adding CSS to an HTML page is like giving your website a stylish makeover. You people understand, right? So there are 3 ways to do that. First is external CSS, second is internal CSS, and third is inline CSS. So external CSS is most efficient when working on multiple web pages because you write all the styling sheet in a separate .css file. Okay, and you link it to the HTML using link inside the head option. So this method allows you to update the look of your entire website by changing just one file. Internal CSS is useful when you want to style just one HTML page. Okay, you write the CSS inside style tag in the head section of that specific page. Okay, and inline CSS on the other hand is applied directly to the individual HTML element using the style attribute. So we write the style attribute in one line in which you want to add the CSS and it's get added. So when multiple styles are applied to the same content, CSS following a priority order. Inline takes the highest priority followed by internal. So inline has the highest, then internal, and then external. And finally, the browser defaults right. So choosing the right method depends on the project you're making, but external CSS is generally best because it's written in a separate file. Moving ahead with the next question, which is how do you create a hyperlink in HTML? In HTML, a hyperlink is created using anchor tag, which allows user to navigate from one page to another. The most important attribute of this tag is href or hyperlink reference, which defines where the link should go. Okay, say for example, you have written this line ahref equals to www.google.com, go to Google. So when you're clicking this particular line, the page directs to google.com. Okay, so you can also use your images as link by placing image tag. Okay, this makes the image a clickable link. So the link is appeared in blue color by default and it turns to purple when you click it. So moving ahead with the next question, which is what is the difference between cell spacing and cell padding? Okay, so cell padding and cell spacing are both used in HTML tables, but they serve different purposes. Okay, cell padding control the space inside a table cell. For example, you can see this is the space. Space between cell's wall and content is called cell padding. For example, if in the code you are setting cell padding equals to 10, right? Which means there will be 10 pixel of space between the content and border. So this will be 10 pixel. With this, the text inside each cell will not be squeezed against the border. Instead, it will have 10 pixel of gap inside the cell. On the other hand, cell spacing control the space between individual table cell. For example, if you here you have one more cell, so cell spacing means the space between each and every cells. So if you use cell spacing equals to 10, which means these two will have a gap of 10 pixel between them. So, in summary, we can say cell padding is like a putting a cushion inside each cell to keep the content from touching the edges, while cell spacing is like adding spaces between different table cells to separate them visually. Okay, moving ahead with the next question, which is how do you create a table in HTML with a table name and columns header? Okay, so all of us have somewhere or the other worked with table in our life, right? So a table helps display data in the form of rows and column. So this is column 1, column 2, column 3. This is row 1, row 2, row 3. Tables are created using this table tag, and each row is created using tr tag. Then use th for column header and td for actual data. Okay, now let's see the code for the same. I have written the codes in order to save the time. I'll show you. Okay, so this is your code for creating the table. We are giving table border as 1. Okay, you can also use CSS later for styling. Then we are giving caption strong employee details because I want this employee details to be in bold, which adds the table name or title above the table. Okay, then this is table header, which we can call as column name. Okay, so we are taking 4 columns: employee ID, name, department, and salary. Then we are putting data. Table data as 101, John, finance, and rupees. Then again, we are taking 2 rows. Now let's go to the location where I have saved this file. This is one. Then you open this. So you see, this is the table which has employee detail, 3 rows and 4 columns. Okay. So this is the simple code. So this is the code you see here. Now moving ahead with the next question, how do you create a checkbox in HTML? So what is a checkbox? A checkbox lets users select one or more options from a list. You often see it for accepting items, subscribing to mail, or select the preferences. For example, which color do you like? So blue, black, pink. Here will be the checkboxes. So suppose you like more than one color. So you like blue and black. So you can check. So that is the checkbox. Okay. So now let's quickly see the code for the same. So this is the code for the checkbox. We are giving the title as select your hobbies. Okay, then input type equals to checkbox. We are telling that it is a checkbox. Then we are creating the ID equals to music. This is a unique identifier. Okay. And then we are putting name equals to hobby, then value music, and then label. So this is the text shown above or beside the drop down. Okay. Similarly, we are creating 2 more fields. Now let's run it. So you see, select your hobbies, then checkboxes. You can select all 3 or you can select only one. Okay. So moving ahead with the next question, which is how do you create a drop-down list in HTML? So a drop-down list lets the user choose one option from the list, like selecting your country, age group, or favorite food. For example, you can't have your age group present between 8 to 10 also and 10 to 15 also. Okay. So a drop-down list is created using select tag with each option defined by an option. Okay. See option, option, then select ID equals to fruit. Then we are giving option value as apple, banana, cherry. Now let's see the code. So this is the code. We are giving the title as fruit selector. Okay. Now we are giving a button also, submit. The rest I've explained in slides only. Now let's see the output. See. So select your favorite fruit, apple, banana, or cherry. Then I choose banana, then submit as I have not created the linked file. So it's showing your file couldn't be accessed. Okay. Now moving ahead with the last question for this particular topic, what are forms and how to create them in HTML? So HTML forms allow user to input data which can be sent to a server using post or get method. So you in your life you must have used form. For example, Google form only. So it's like you're putting your name, email, preferences, etc. So this is the code. Firstly, I'll explain the code and then I'll show the output. So this starts the form action equals to submit. This means that the data will be sent to the server, okay, at the URL. Method equals to post, send the data securely in the background, not in the URL. This. Then we are using label for equals to name, your name. So this is the label for the name input field. It is linked to the field with ID equals to name. Okay, here. Then we are taking input type equals to text, ID, name equals to name. So this is a text box where the user can type their name. Name equals to name is what the form sends as the key for that value. Okay. Then similarly for the email we are creating label, an input type, and finally a button for submit. Okay. Now let's see the code. This is a similar code. We are giving the title as simple form. Okay, now let's open it. So you see, here is your contact form. For example, my name, and I'm putting abc@gmail.com. That's it. So that is all from my side. If you guys like this video, kindly hit the like and subscribe button for Intellipaat's YouTube channel. Thank you and see you in the next videos.